So thank you very much, QAI. Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you, all the organizers of QAI, to put me here. It's really a privilege talking at HCC every year, and I was there last year as well. So I've got a very debatable topic, so don't throw me out of the room when the child is born. I know DevOps is taking its birth, but before the DevOps is taking its birth, I'm like a soothsayer saying that DevOps may die. Okay? So anyone who has those big bags at the back, please wait for a while. The title could be a little misleading, but let's see what the title has at the end of the day. Is that fine? Okay. So I have been, okay. I represent Amdocs. Amdocs is a market leader in telecom testing, and we are a $3.6 billion company based out in Israel, and 24,000 professionals all throughout. And I represent the process part of the quality testing practice. We serve 300 plus customers and in 90 countries. We have got 95% of our projects based out of a success rate in a sample space of 2,500 projects. And in the communication industries, we are number one in testing, and Nelson Hall has rated us as a market leader, and that's the data which I wanted to share, representing the company here. So we have got a very interesting testing framework called beet, which is a patented framework of Amdocs, and we've got 40 patents till now in this particular space in beet. We have got the European Software Testing Quality Awards as the best overall testing project in communication industry, in telecom industry to be more precise. So whether it's Gartner or Technavio or Nelson Hall, all have voted for us as the best communication service provider. This is our global presence in different areas. We do testing as all testing companies do, and we are into digital assurance and digital testing. I have colleagues from Amdocs, Mr. Harsh Agrawal, Ashish Agrawal, my colleagues who represent the digital space testing in Amdocs, and we all want to tell a story that we have a framework which is so innovative, so targeted, so predictive that we're able to do a good job to all our customers, and this is the whole thought process there. Testing in Amdocs has various flavors, right from performance to testing in agile, mobile network, TCOE, test automation, and we have business-oriented testing in telecom and the digital experience or digital assurance testing. Now let me come down to the context of the abstract of the DevOps. I don't know, you must have heard about a term by Andrew Koenig a long time back that QA is also going to die. One cannot afford to have QA in the middle of a continuous development. So when I read that statement, I thought that there has to be something, even DevOps will follow that type of a pattern. So it was a perfect storm scenario, which the paper which I wrote, which I'm trying to showcase in the next 20 minutes or so. A lot of events have been intersecting as we talk. We wanted to automate all deployments. We wanted to make sure that the tester in us shifts left, shifts right, shifts up, as we all heard from the various keynotes and presentations. But at the end of the day, I thought the developer will knew a thing about an operating system and networks which ops may not know, or ops may have some knowledge which dev may not know. So anyway, I saw that DevOps is going to really help us, that's for sure. But if we don't have a very clear assessment framework for DevOps, it may have or it may die its natural death. That's what I thought, that there has to be a way of creating an assessment for DevOps. I thought about a framework called Asht Pradhan. Asht Pradhan comes from the Maratha king having 8 ministers in his court to help him to run the job. So Asht means 8, Pradhan means ministers. So I thought about that DevOps could have something like 8 C's. So we always are aware of many C's in DevOps. Continuous, in fact, we call it a CX, continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous deployment, continuous collaboration, so on and so forth. So we thought that there has to be a way in which DevOps also gets assessed. DevOps becoming dead can happen if it becomes an unnecessary step in continuous development. Some say future is development only because we have anyway made the tester half developer. We're asking him to code, we're asking him to script, we're asking him to learn automation, then why should we call him a tester? Think for a while. Developers are increasingly turning to managed services, and managed services for tool sets and infrastructure requirements. That's also happening, friends, in a big way. Managed service anyway is killing DevOps, another thought process. I'm throwing these thoughts to you. We can debate in the Q&A. I saw there is an imbalance in prioritization. Dev teams are still not responsible for deployment and performance. They say it's still over. I'm shipping it over the wall. There was no checklist or framework. So all these thoughts came in my mind to tell that DevOps could die a natural death, or it is the baby declared dead before even operated. So there was a need to look things in a better way. DevOps is dead. Yes, it can when we are not able to unite them in a proper way. We have developers, we have IT operations, the system admin, all of them are working hard to create a common ground. The premise here is that someone has to still write in and write the required tool set. We need developers for that. Many companies have resolved this whole problem of DevOps. There is a lot of conflicts, roles and responsibility. There is a lot of support which we need for both the ecosystems to survive. You must have seen Stephen talking about the 3 circles, the Dev, the Ops, and the QA. Now, how good is the intersection working is something which we need to ponder over. So that's the time when 8 primes approach was thought by me. I used all the 8 C's. 6 C's were anyway well in circulation. The communication, collaboration, the continuous process, the integration, the deployment, monitoring, control, and delivery. We had all the 8 C's, and then I will take you through a small checklist which has been developed, which will be verified on the floor whether these 8 C's are working. These checklists are again backed and empowered by Gene Kim's 3 principles of DevOps. That's systems thinking, feedback loops, which are very important for DevOps, and also for the culture of continual experimentation and learning. So let us have a quick look at the checklist. So I'm taking each of these 8 C's and trying to talk about it. The first one is continuous testing. So all these checklists have questions, and all questions have ROI associated with it. So if I have to do continuous testing, I need to demonstrate velocity. I need to show how much regression time I have got decreased due to continuous testing. I need to show whether I have done a static code analysis, service virtualization for all my AUTs, so on and so forth. Similarly, the checklist goes to the extent of talking to each of the parameters. Deployment, but what is the right deployment? Whether the SCM is in place, whether there is infrastructure as a code, a concept put in place, whether there is a code version control. So maybe when we have a DevOps evangelist or a DevOps person, somebody can check all these points. These are not universal, but you can start with some good checklist. That's the advice. Delivery. After the DevOps came, has the delivery been self-managed? How good is the delivery moving towards a case where we have something called architecturally significant requirement? We talk about ASRs these days. So how is monitoring happening? Do we do a last-minute monitoring? Do you have network system and application monitoring in place? Do you have any analytics in place to do monitoring? So like this, a checklist was developed, with some scores. And then the idea of putting this checklist in place was to tell that if you're doing DevOps, better have some structure in place. Two themes have come now. One is DevOps, like agile, if not assessed, can have a slow death. Better have some things in place. The second thing is, I want to take you through a little bit of a storytelling of DevOps. It's a post-lunch session. I will tell the story for the next speaker, and I think that time you'll be sleeping, okay? So there are the Panch Tantra, which you all know, is that this is how I wanted to relate DevOps to this whole story. You must have known Vishnu Sharma, who wrote Panch Tantra, and I was looking at some of the key fables in Panch Tantra, and been in the industry for 26 odd years, I was trying to relate this whole Panch Tantra to DevOps or Agile or even the testing story. So the story of DevOps can be traced as similar to Panch Tantra, where the main actors are Dev, QA, and Ops, which we have seen from the earlier conference, from the earlier speech. Dev, QA, and Ops can marry, divorce, or remarry as per the Niti. And Niti means a conduct of life, wiseness. So Panch Tantra explains the Niti and Sandarbh. Sandarbh in Hindi is context. And they are conjoined twins. And the author, that's me saying that we are going to create a future, which Mahesh was also telling in the first half, testers who will not test, but they will test as per the context. They are context imperial in nature. So what is the first story of Panch Tantra? Mitra Bheda. DevOps is reborn. The story of the lion and the bull. How many of you remember the story of the lion and the bull? Can I have some hands up? Very less people read Panch Tantra, so no problem. So the first book which Vishnu Sharma wrote was The Lion and the Book, and he said that they were a separation of two friends. It begins with the friendship between the lion king, Pingalka, and the bull, Sanjeevka. The two jackals, the Kartaka and the Dhamnaka, and the ministers, they were breaking up the friendship. The jackal narrate most of the 30 stories. The book accounts for 45% of the story. So the corollary which I'm trying to draw from here is DevOps was there 30 years before. I'm sure all of you may not have been born. I was born 30 years before, okay? And I used to work in EDP departments. I used to work in MIS departments, and I know that I was writing COBOL, I was writing Pascal, I was testing it, productionizing it, and doing legacy systems. So people who are little gray-haired in the audience can relate to me that this is the practice which almost was there. I was talking to some of them while having lunch that DevOps 30 years before, the EDP department had it, the closed system. The IVN practice came and separated the friends, the Dev, the Ops, and the QA. And then the test factory came, the managed test services came. So all these new models separated the old friends. So this is one good story to link the whole DevOps to the first level of Panch Tantra. Making sense? Okay. The second story, Mitra Labha. Mitra Samprapti. Samprapti means acquisition of a friend, gaining of a friend. The dove, the crow, the mouse, the tortoise, and the deer. The second book of Vishnu Sharma says that in the art of making friends through a friendship between a rat or a crow, which led to a turtle or a fawn, so the collaboration started. So the friends get divided, the friends are getting collaborated. The second story is the antithesis of the first story. So what has happened? Agile came, 2000 and odd at least, the manifestos came, the culture came, all the warring factions, the Chinese wall between the dev and the tester started disappearing. The warring factions started collaborating. They started presenting to customer a single entity. They were warring, the customer was seeing the war, but then they said that we are interwoven. And how did they get intertwined? Quality came into picture. The TQM happened, the quality departments came, quality assurance came, and they said that we are together. So when I was looking at this part of the story as part of my workplace understanding, I saw that there was a Mitra Labha coming from Mitra Beda. The third story of Panchtantra is Kako Lukiam, that is the war and the peace of the crows and the owls. Interesting. The third book said that there is the art of war and the importance of peace. The traditional enemies in the Panchtantra were the crows and the owls, as you must be knowing. The book says that the weaker crows will overcome the mightier owls by gaining access to the secrets. This book accounts for 26%. The weaker crows. Who are the weaker crows? Okay, so don't feel weak, you have become stronger. The Goliath. The testers learning scripts, the testers shifting left, the testers becoming pseudo-developers. That was the third trend of this whole story, which I can see, where the whole process of becoming powerful started gathering momentum. The fourth Panchtantra story was the Labdha Prasanam, which means the loss of gains, the story of the monkey and the crocodile. The fourth book says that you can still gain for the loss which you have made by using what is called as a symbiosis, a symbiotic relationship, like one organism surviving on the base of the other. The relationship between the monkey and the crocodile in Panchtantra tells how you can still conquer the heart of the monkey. When I was looking at this story, I drew a corollary on the symbiotic friendship between the dev and QA and how it can result losing the identity of testers. Testers became a separate species after the IVN came. They became kings in their own way. They became their own species. They started testing and they were not knowing what developers are doing. So no one knows when the monkey and the tester will come and the wisdom will prevail. We can see the loss of gains taking place. So the developer knew what the tester will do, but now no one knows what the tester will test because tester has become context imperial. The tester has become the king. Let's give a big hand to all the testers. Big hand. Thank you. Tester became the king. The monkey and the tester started through exploratory testing. Testing became predominantly paramount, and we can see the loss of gains happening in Panchtantra 4. The last part of the story, Panchtantra 5, says Aparirikshta Rakam, which means ill-considered actions. The Brahmani and the mongoose story of the Panchtantra. The fifth book, which revolves around the cases, and it is saying that Brahmani and her pet mongoose started defending the child, although injuries, but got punished due to a wrong misunderstanding. She later regrets having killed her friend. There was a miscommunication. Corollary, never kill the messenger who brings the bad news. Who brings the bad news in the IT industry? Testers. Testers are the endpoints of the software supply chain. Testers are the endpoints of the software value chain. The leakage defects comes to tester and not to the DevOps team. Now everyone owes what they give and what they get. So everyone sings the same song and faces the same music. And that is the power of Panchtantra 5. And that Panchtantra is getting repeated in the form of our IT industry story of DevOps and testing. So in the interest of time, I will close here. I've got different solutions for how we can solve the problem and response. The Word document will be too heavy for the conference, but then at the end of the day, the message which I want to give as a keynote in this conference is the DevOps must act as a single team. They must have certain guidance. They cannot be fully flexible. It has to be a guided, flexible model. It has to be a guided, flexible model. Guidance plus flexibility can put the DevOps story in a full-fledged action. Otherwise, it will be a free-for-all for all the people who implement it. With these few words, I would like to, I don't have time for all this, but I will say that DevOps can be dead if you're not addressing these transformation stories. The pre-transformation and the post-transformation stories are there with data for you, and those were the days when we used to take 100 days on some sample data. It's now 17 days. To update servers, it used to take 100 days, it's 10 days, and now it's all in hours. I have a lot of examples that never put everything in DevOps, put it in the second gear. You may still have a legacy system in the third gear. Run the system in 2 engines. Don't run the system in only 1 gear. That could be dangerous. Have a trade-off, work in multiple gears. So if you see an organization, there's an enterprise architecture, there's an IT architecture, there's an application development and a testing mechanism. So we need to understand this quadrant and tell how the whole DevOps runs. Netflix is a very good example of DevOps happening in 2 speeds, and the case study is up there for your understanding. I just took this because they were very smart enough to use a 2-speed IT architecture to make the DevOps story happen. Oh. Examples are there, and you have to run in 2 speeds. That's the most important example. And with the DevOps roles, you have to become a generalizing specialist, a jack of all trades and mini master of some. That is a generalizing specialist. You have to become an all-stack engineer. You have to become, you should have an understanding of the whole delivery pipeline. And you have to know how you work with new culture, new talent, and the company's or organization's culture has to be redefined. The talent has to be redefined. The process and governance has to be redefined. Okay? So these are some of the key points which I want to say. So let's look at the summary point. Check that device there. Have to be redefined. That means a self-service model. We are going towards microservices and all. A self-service model should come. At the end of the day, productivity is the key. Productivity is the key, and Panchtantra is just a context to tell you the story. And most important is quality goals are important, but more important than quality is customer experience and loyalty. So customer experience and loyalty is the king, and let's follow that path to be successful. With these few words, I would like to thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Ramamoorthy. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, no questions.
Check, check.
Thank you, Dr. Ramamoorthy, for such an amazing presentation. The depiction with the methodology was very, very interesting. Okay, now this was the last